Hello, Serious Survivor here. We're going to touch on a couple of things. And the first thing that I want to talk about is Kamala Harris, Miss Harris, the one who apparently occupies the office of the vice presidency here in the United States. And just very shortly, I would just like to comment on her laughter. And I don't mean her laughter in general, but I mean her laughter when she was asked about the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan and the controversial evacuation process as Americans were trying to exit the country due to the Taliban's swift takeover. And when she was asked this question, her first reaction was to laugh. And I realize that for a lot of people, laughter is a means of defense or whatever, but this is the kind of joke that we have in that office. And someone who can't take something where people are actually dying, something that's causing a lot of people turmoil, and not to mention costing the United States a lot of money that we as taxpayers are going to have to pay. And if she can't even take this seriously, I mean, where has she been? That's my first question. This is the first I've seen from her since this all started. It's like she's hiding somewhere. And probably for good reason. They don't want her out in public. And that's probably a pretty good idea. The same as with old Joe.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories. And they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
And here we're going to look at the Johns Hopkins University website. And for those familiar, we're used to, when you first come here, you know, this is a page. I'll put the link in the description below. And this is the page that basically breaks down the COVID details. And we can look at different representations, visual maps, visual graphs of different things. And we look at like the global map and you can get all the information. And I'm sure people are familiar with this. But the part of it that I want to show everyone today so that you have this resource is under data visualizations right here. Under data visualizations. When you go down, click on that, it'll bring up these graphs right here. And this third one, weekly hospitalization trends. When we click on that, we'll see that this page was updated on Monday, August 23rd, 2021, and today's my birthday. I'm 51 years young, so happy birthday. But as we go down and look at it, this shows, what this does is shows the ICU capacity for all of the hospitals in the United States. This is a total of all of the hospitals in the United States. And we're looking at just the ICU here. And when we look at this, if we just look at this past week that ended on August 22nd, yesterday, we can see that 78% of the ICU beds in the U.S. are occupied. And we have a total ICU beds in the U.S. at 85,537. This is a pretty, standard number here. As you can see, the trend. ICU beds unoccupied, 19,141. COVID ICU beds occupied, 22,851. Non-COVID ICU beds occupied, 43,545. So in the ICU, we see that the majority of patients, 2-to-1, almost a 2-to-1 ratio, 43,000 to 22,000, are non-COVID and COVID. And it's sort of odd if you watch this trend, as the COVID increases here, suddenly these other cases seem to decrease equally with the COVID increase. So just something for thought there. But we can see that there's still a lot of availability. And the reason I point this out is because we hear so much on the mainstream media about places being overrun, about places, not having room for people. And I suppose that is, definitely possible in some areas. But generally speaking, over the entire country, it's not happening. And Johns Hopkins itself is showing us this, that it's not happening. If we look at the entire inpatient capacity, so not just ICU, but how many, beds total that are in each hospital, we can see here that there's quite a number. As of week ending August 22nd, 77% of inpatient beds are occupied. Total inpatient beds in the United States, 775,000 people or beds. Beds unoccupied, 181,000. COVID inpatient beds occupied, 93,000. Non-COVID inpatient beds occupied, 500,000. So once again, we see some numbers here, and I'll leave it to everyone out there. to add these up for yourself. But when we listen to the mainstream media, it seems that we're hearing something totally different about this. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about today, just very briefly, is sort of two subjects in one. And it's the fact that the U.S. was asked that had the U.S. government paid the Taliban to allow safe passage for U.S. citizens. And the answer given by the U.S. government, Mr. Kirby, was no. Not that I'm aware of. We've heard that in the past, and that tends to be a giveaway that there's a very good possibility something did happen, and he's just trying to play it off. Now, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Hopefully more will come out on this in the future. But the problem with this is the question comes as U.S. leaders grapple with how to get thousands of people out of the country with the initial August 31st deadline for a full drawdown looming next week. Next Tuesday is the final day that we are supposed to be in Afghanistan. And a Taliban spokesman said today, that any U.S. effort to extend that deadline would represent a red line for the group. It's a red line, Taliban spokesman Suhail Shaheen told Sky News Monday. If the U.S. or UK were to seek additional time to continue evacuations, the answer is no. Or there would be consequences, Shaheen said. This is actually concerning, because what this is showing us is that the Taliban is looking at the U.S. government and telling them what to do. Not just the U.S., but the U.K., as they quickly pointed out here. They're telling them what to do. They're drawing the red line in the sand. Something tells me this administration is not the type to cross a red line or even draw one. This is really concerning because with this simple set of statements that we heard, it has made the U.S. look even weaker, especially if we do request more time and we're told no, and then we leave people there, because that's a possibility with what we've already seen. What's going to happen then? And, this is concerning on so many fronts. We talk about we have Americans. We got Americans that are left in Afghanistan, but when you sit here and listen to the reports and watch the interviews, and they talk about, well, we've evacuated 30 to 40,000 people so far. Those aren't all Americans. I'm sorry, but at this point, the Americans that we left there, the contractors, the people that worked on the military bases, the American citizens, should be first and foremost. Then if we can move anyone else who's in danger, if we can get them out, then that's great. But we need to get our own citizens out first, and that's not happening. These planes that are coming out are filled more with Afghan refugees than they are with U.S. citizens, and the government is even admitting to that. So what we're seeing is us being flooded with refugees while our own people are still there waiting, hoping that they will get a way out, because they only have 8 days left. 8 days. And then for those people that are not out in 8 days, it's very well going to be a death sentence for them. Well, I just want to talk a little bit about some of this breaking stuff today. Going to have a lot more coming out this week. Thanks a lot for watching. God bless. And for now, Serious Survivor, out.